I am grateful for this, and to that end I look to the restoration of the true standards of the mystery school, and I tell you, in case you have not remembered, that when Moses originally went to the mountain to receive from Sanat Kumara a code of conduct for the light bearers of the world, you remember he was there 40 days without eating, fasting, writing down these teachings, this code of conduct. You can imagine that it did not take 40 days on the mountain to write 10 commandments. He had the entire code of conduct for initiates, walking a path of personal union with God, balancing the karma of rebellion against the Lord Christ in Eden to restore those back to their divinity. Moses came down the mountain. He came down the mountain and he found those for whom it was intended playing and dancing and worshiping a golden calf. And angered, he threw down those tablets and they were broken. Up the mountain again he went, and God gave him 10 rules of order for a stiff-necked and a rebellious generation. Let us take this to heart and understand that we are intended to be bodhisattvas, disciples, and initiates, and therefore we must outpicture not only the bodhisattva vow, but the code of conduct that sets us apart from a rebellious and stiff-necked generation, which we might have been one time, but we do not intend to be again from this day forward. We do not intend to have to be reduced to 10 rules, which the majority of the people on this planet cannot, will not, and do not keep. And yet these are for the outer court, rules of common decency, whereby one can begin a path of discipleship and graduate to a code of conduct that is only written that we might conserve the sacred fire and use it to our own ascension. So you see, we have lived through these days. Yes, we have lived through them. Recently it was told to me that a student had referred to me as a tyrant, a student of long standing. Moria showed me immediately this individual had been with Moses and called him a tyrant, was judged therefore, and was swallowed up by the earth in that earthquake. So you see, there are some who return again and again. They do not change. Immovable as the Sphinx. The storms of karma, the cycles may turn. They may be beaten upon by the weather and the wind. But they remain as stiff-necked and rebellious as they were. So I tell you, there has been never so great a day of salvation as this hour of violet flame, and never so great a hope in my heart in the sincerity of all who desire to truly come in to alignment. Beloved ones, it is important to set the record straight physically. If you have stolen from the church in taking funds or things and not paying for them, pay it back and let me know about it, and pay your fine with it. If you use church vehicles and don't pay for their use and the gasoline, get yourself in a right place. Can you imagine the glory of the Lord that should descend upon this congregation if every single person who is a keeper of the flame living in the state of Montana should come into that desire of absolute right conduct, right-heartedness, right mindfulness, right behavior in the sight of his I Am presence? And we should all be gathered in one day on that day of Pentecost, meaning 5, the day of the 5 secret rays, when the Holy Spirit does come upon us. Do we not desire to do this? Not for the Holy Spirit and gifts, but for the fact that in that state, surely, the 24 elders should look upon us and restore to our beloved El Moria his grace when he needs it to deliver a people and a planet in this hour of this astrology. Is not life more beautiful and joyous when we settle our accounts, pay our debts, and do not have to ask our guru to bear them? Or when the messenger, so pitying the Guru El Moria, will then volunteer to bear them and therefore be walking around bearing karma instead of doing those things of intercessory calls, publishing books, all that we can do to still contact further light bearers of the world. I assure you that my mantle bears your karma when you don't. I ask you, in respect of your own integrity, to decide to want to bear the maximum burden of your karma as you are able. I do not ask you to bear more than you are able because I do not wish to see you incapacitated or off the path. But most do not bear what they are truly able to bear. And therefore, you see, my responsibilities are first and foremost to you personally, to your hearts, to your lives, to your souls. I wish to tell you and the entire field that I was recently shocked by a report, which I requested, of the tithing record of church members. The tithing record, the keeping of that law has so fallen in 1988 and 1987 that this alone, the disobedience to the law of tithe given to us by Abraham, who tithed to Melchizedek, I can see is a major breach in the oneness of the community as a whole with the heart of El Moria, who is Abraham. And the principle of that tithe is that whatever we have, 1/10 belongs to God, 1/10 we must give to Him. If we do not have 1/10 to give, then we are living beyond our karmic condition, beyond our means. To enjoy the fullness of the law, we should be willing to have less, but to keep the law of the tithe. Then we have El Moria as the great sponsor of the Pearls of Wisdom. Many keepers of the flame and students of the masters do not subscribe, or they do not keep up their payments. And so the Pearls of Wisdom that are communion wafer each week go unread, unassimilated. And Jesus said, except ye eat my flesh and drink my blood, ye have no life in you. I can tell you that that statement put the fear of God in me from the time I read it, about the age of 8. And I never cease to have the fear of God when I consider it, if I do not daily assimilate the body and blood of Christ. So I tell you, we have an obligation. Let us keep our obligations. Let us tithe. Let us keep our keepers of the flame commitment and our pearls of wisdom. Unless you have done that each month, you cannot give gifts to the church. First, you take care of your obligations. These are the letters of the law that become a chalice whereby we may not only receive the Spirit into a chalice offered, but we receive the Spirit into our temple. Your keeping then of the laws of God, His commandments, which begin and end with divine love, conditions how much light you may absorb from a given dictation, from the decrees you offer. It behooves us then to interpret Saint Germain's directive to be prepared, to understand that this tidying of our house and our households is the greatest preparedness we can make, thereby having the greatest energy to get into the physical responsibilities of preparation.